Okay, so what is life coaching anyway? Let's just get started. Okay, I thought it'd be good to give a few statistics, and so I'm going to turn around and read because I'm having trouble with my eyes a little bit. So, life coaching, there's over 34,000 life coaches in the United States, and globally there's over 109,000. 51.7% of all coaches are women, but there are 48.3% of coaches are men. And so I thought that was an interesting statistic. And so I think you can kind of imagine, I'm stereotyping, but you think about it. Men can be executive coaches, business coaches, financial coaches. Women can be that too, but I don't, so it just kind of depends. Okay, specialties under the umbrella of life coaching. This is not an exhaustive list at all, but there's health coaching, relationship coaching. You can read them, mindset coaching, general life coaching, business coaching, life-work balance. There's even I even saw, after I've made my slide, there's a mental health coach. All right, some benefits of life coaching just in general. I hope you can read that, but it can improve health outcomes for certain patients. Limited analysis, this came from the BMC Health Services Research, found that coaching methods that aim to improve self-efficacy and self-empowerment can improve health outcomes, especially for people who don't benefit from intensified interventions, i.e. coaching. The next one is a case study of women from the International Journal of Evidence-Based Coaching and Mentoring. A case of study of women leaders who participated in coaching shows that leadership coaching can help coaching clients improve their self-awareness, self-confidence, self-leadership, leadership style, and their relationship to power, conflict, and personal life. And I think in the world we live in today, I think we can all figure out that there's a need for that. Kind of live in an upside down world. 70% of coaching clients improve work performance, communication, and relationships thanks to coaching. And then 75% of coaching clients say that the value they get from the executive and leadership coaching is considerably greater or far greater than the money and time they invest. So, life coaching is a thing. It's something that's going to be around. I thought about being a life coach actually before I knew what a life coach was. And I think life coaching started in the 60s maybe. I don't really know quite when it started. But 80s it became popular, I think. And so when I was in high school, people would always come to me and say, can you give me advice on this, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of in my DNA, I guess. So what was available to me at that point when I was furthering my study was counseling. So now I'm transitioning. So let's talk about the difference between life coaching and counseling. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please feel free to share, okay? So coaches focus on the present and the future, okay? They don't deal with, as counseling does, on the past. You go to a counselor, say you've had trauma, you've had clinical depression all your life, you're bipolar, you need that intensified help, and you work from your past to try to control your symptoms. A coach, this is where I am, I've got a goal, I'm stuck where I am, this is my goal that I want to achieve, so how do I get there? Okay. Coaching has a mentor relationship. Now, they also do other things, but a mentor, you think about a mentor, if you start in a business somewhere, you have somebody that's over you, and they kind of mentor you, show you the ropes, tell you how it's done, and all that. Once upon a time, I wanted to get older couples who had been married lots of years to mentor newly married couples. I thought that was going to be a good idea. So that's coaching. Counseling is more of a doctor-patient relationship. The counselor is like the doctor. Here's the treatment plan, this is what you do, and you'll get better. So coaching is a less structured environment because the client has say. This is what I want to work on. Now, the coach might have to say, well, you're kind of going off chasing a rabbit here. Let's come back and let's work on what we're working on. But it's still what you want to work on. You establish that as a client. Counseling, on the other hand, is a more structured. Okay, So as coaches, you're helping clients discover what they need to do to meet their goals. And you're encouraging them, you're holding them accountable. You're not babysitting and trying to make them feel better. You know, as maybe a friend, you could go to a friend and they don't want to hurt your feelings, so they may not say what they really think about what you should do. So a counselor, in that situation, a counselor helps you uncover what is going on in your past that's causing you to have that trauma, what caused that in the first place, and then they help you recover. So it's a different outlook. You're coming from a different perspective. Okay, so in coaching, it's a wellness emphasis. What do I need to do? What are some good habits that I can put into place so I can keep a routine? So if I lose my focus, maybe I have made the habit of making a list every morning and say, this is what I need to do today. Things like that. Counseling is from the perspective of healing. You're going to be healed from something. On coaches, you work with, now I say healthy people, let me explain that. Those are people that aren't dysfunctional. They can do their activities of daily living without any problem. They just have something that they have a challenge with that they need help with. Okay, so they're higher functioning usually. They could have a mental health disorder because, quite frankly, if you have a mental health disorder, but you have medication and you're functioning well, you can still see a coach. And then the counselors work with people with mental health illness who their activities of daily living are hampered. You know, say you're clinically depressed. You don't want to get out of the house. You may not be able to keep a job because you can't get out of the house to go to work. Things like that. Again, if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, so for coaches, work is based on client achieving their full potential. So say you're working with somebody to be a speaker and they just have no confidence at all. They get up and they speak real loud, they speak soft, and they kind of have that, oh, I can't do it, I'm going to be a terrible counselor, that shame that comes over you. You work on that shame. That's just a perspective. That's just a thought. You do mind work to try to get better and change that programming you have in your mind. That's a thing, and it's biblical too. We'll talk about that next week. Okay, so counseling, it's work based on a mental health diagnosis. You have to have a mental health diagnosis to see a counselor because it's all run by insurance and insurance pays for it. It's all a whole system. Well, okay. Now, one thing I like to tell people is that in coaching, a diagnosis is not required for payment. But in counseling, a diagnosis is required for payment. So again, for coaches, I said it before, but it's client-centered. The client is very much involved in the whole process, and the coach just helps with that. And the other counselor is counselor-centered. The counselor's in charge. You do what I say. This is how you get better. Okay. And this is something that I thought was really neat. I've always had a problem with this in counseling. In coaching, emotions are considered natural. They're your signal in your body that just says something's not right. Okay? In counseling, emotions were always a symptom of something that you needed to be healed from. So again, coaches help clients reach their goals, and the counselors work under professional expertise. Clients work under professional expertise and guidelines. As a counselor, you have specific guidelines that you have to do. You have a diagnostic tool. If you meet 3 out of 5 of these characteristics, you're diagnosed with this, or you're diagnosed with this, or whatever. So usually coaching is a little bit more enjoyable atmosphere as far as opposed to counselors, or it's kind of more uncomfortable sometimes because you don't want to necessarily work on work on your trauma. I don't want to relive my trauma. Well, you have to face it and be desensitized from it. That's what some techniques say, EMDR and things like that. They're techniques that you use. Okay, again, no diagnosis is recorded on a health record for coaching, but there is a diagnosis recorded on a health record for counseling. And I like to tell people it's not necessarily bad, but that diagnosis stays on your health record forever. Okay, so in my conclusion of my notes is coaches define goals with clients. They use client skills in the plan. You make your goals. What we use a lot is called the GROW technique. You make your goals. What's your current reality? What are your options to meet the goal? And then do you have the will to persevere and go through it? So that's the basic premise of coaching. And then you hold clients accountable and you provide encouragement and support. So counselors, you identify symptoms and diagnose. They have a treatment plan based on client strengths. Say somebody is depressed. My client they have family support, so they're going to eat with their family 3 nights a week or whatever. That's a treatment plan you put together. It provides structure. And the counselors are responsible for progress. You have to show some improvement in the treatment plan because that treatment plan has to be changed every 3 months. And so basically that's the technical stuff about coaching. So I can get into some of the nitty-gritty if you would like for me to do. Anybody have questions about coaching at all? The practical parts of it? And there are a lot of different kinds of coaches. Let's talk about educational requirements. You might have a coach that has helped people start businesses. He or she has a track record for that. And so they can put out a shingle and they can start coaching. You have, an executive that's been with a company for 30 years and he's retiring. He can do consult work, or he or she can do consult work and coach other executives to that level. Financial coaches, Edward Jones, I kind of say he could be a financial coach, actually, a nutrition coach. You can have, there's any number of things you can put on it. Mindset coach. Let's talk about anxiety a little bit. I do have to say, as a coach and a counselor, I have to be careful how I word it, because if I use it in reference to a diagnosis, I can't say anxiety diagnosis or generalized anxiety. But I can say somebody's anxious or somebody's stressed or somebody's nervous or somebody, So I have to be careful as a professional because I do both. It's not clinical depression. I can say somebody's depressed, sad. They don't want to get out of their house, things like that. And but let's talk about anxiety. When you're anxious and something triggers you, that amygdala in the back of your brain goes, oh, I've got to get away from that bear, right? That bear's going to chase me and eat me. So when that's triggered and that's going, I can't think clearly. I can't think logically. So one of the first things, and I work with everybody on this, is how do I get that to come back? So I'll give them some techniques, and I'm going to give you some techniques tonight, and then if we have time, we'll go on. These are called grounding techniques. So let's say, okay, if I'm anxious and I'm in a room and everybody's around me, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, okay, what are 5 things I see around me? What are 4 things that I hear? No, that I feel, not emotionally feel, but like textures of things. What are things I feel around me? What are things that I hear? What are 3 things I hear? What are 2 things I smell? And then take a deep breath. And if you're still, you're still anxious, do it again. And that's one thing you can do to kind of calm yourself down. Some people have a rubber band, or I don't say a rubber band, but one of those scrunchy things maybe, something to get your attention. You can just go and flip that. And that gets your attention off of that sometimes. One I like to use is, it's easy to count, but you don't have to think, especially when you do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. You don't really have to think about that. But say you start at 500 and you count backwards by odd numbers. Anything that gets your mind working it distracts you. It'll, because your prefrontal cortex is what your thinking, your logical thinking comes from. So you've got to get that fright and that anxiety gone and calm down by thinking again. So anything you can use your brain to do. And those are just a few things we work on. I work with people on mindset. I had somebody that I worked with who was very successful. She was from Iowa, actually, I think. And she was married, and her husband divorced her. And she just kind of lost it. She couldn't, she was a Christian, and she just thought she was a failure, and she couldn't fly. She was fearful of flying when she used to fly all over everywhere and do things. So over the course of a year, I worked with her on, okay, let's take little baby steps. Okay, if you can't fly, let's start working on going up 3 stories in a building without being anxious. So just little steps. That was the plan. What are some little steps we can do? She would drive across the state, different states, to do her job. She was very successful at her job, but she just couldn't I wasn't me anymore. And so now she's herself after a year of working, but you work on that mindset. Who am I? Okay, what's the circumstance? I got a divorce. So if you think, okay, well, I'm worthless. What did I do? I must have done something wrong. So as a result of that, your action is, you're pretty much, you don't want to be in a relationship with anybody if you're not worth it. Right? And so your action is, you don't get in a relationship. You don't work on what you want to work on. So it always goes back to that thought. I'm worthless. So you have to change that programming. So we work on how can you change that. It has to be something sincere. Well, the divorce. I'm worthless. Well, maybe you can reframe that to be, well, that really brought me down, but I know that little by little I can be myself again. And then, so how does that make you feel? Well, that maybe make you feel a little bit hopeful that you can do that. And so the result is you're going to try harder a little bit, take a little step. And then, so your action is you're making progress. So then that reinforces that I'm making progress. I'm working out of it. And so if you can think of things in that, and if you think, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, who am I in Christ? And that we're going to talk about that a little bit next week. Who am I? I'm a child of God. I'm royalty. That doesn't mean I'm going to lord it over everybody else, but I've got power. I can tap into that, right? And help other people. Coaches and counselors both, their goal is to serve people. And the more we can serve, that's how I get my fulfillment and the satisfaction. If at the end of the day, some days I have such good conversations and people turn around and they make such progress. And then there are days that they don't make as much progress. But that's normal. And it's part of life. But change is part of life. And so as a Christian coach, I always say, even if they don't say they're a Christian, I say, is faith important to you? How would you rate on a scale of 1 to 10 your spirituality and your faith? I say faith more because spirituality can go into all different directions. But if they say, yes, I have a faith, I'm not where I need to be, well, how would you rate that? Is that something you want to work on? Because we can sure work on that. And so I have a master's of religious education. That doesn't make me an expert, but I'm a Christian. So, but if that piece of paper helps me get that respect to do that, I'm going to use that, and we're going to work on that, and that's one of the goals we're going to work on. So, that's kind of a little bit of introduction about what I do. Do you feel like coaching was anything that at all what we talked about tonight? Did you have a preconceived idea what coaching was? A little bit? Yeah. So I hope this was helpful. Any comments to help me be better for, somebody else would be great too. Is there anything you feel like I didn't answer for y'all? That's a good question. How long is the work with somebody? It depends on what you're working on. A lot of people work for 4 months, 6 months, and they can always renew but the thing is they need to see that progress. And that's what you do. So, okay, at the end of 3 months or 4 months, have you made the progress you wanted to make? Now, is that because you don't think your coach is helping you, or is that because you haven't been held to account enough to do what you need to do to do that? I don't say it that way, but it's so they have to decide, because that's their investment that they're making. But there's some people that go for a year. And actually, depending on where they are, it's easy to do a year. There's a lot of work and it takes a year to even get the bare minimum going, especially if they have such a bad mindset about themselves. But it can also, if you plan, I see a coach and I pay her. I paid an initial, and that's one thing with coaching. A lot of coaches say, you need to give me the initial for 4 months. This is how much it is. You need to pay me. Some people break it up in payments. Just kind of, and the thing is, they can do whatever they want to do. But it behooves the client to ask questions. How do you know, what's your expertise in this field? How do I know you can help me? And ask those questions, and don't just, because some people actually get certification for it. You just have to do your shopping. You have to do your due diligence. And it's good to have word of mouth, So, Gary, you were going to say something.
Any level of life coaching information, whether it's a year or whatever, could you mention a little bit about that?
You mean how long will they go and renew and keep going?
Basic level, kind of progress up to the higher levels.
It depends on the client, and it depends on the program. Okay, there's some people that have programs where they have, they have a group coaching every week, and then they have every 2 weeks they meet one-on-one with the people that they're coaching in the group coaching. And so sometimes they have a curriculum, and so you buy the curriculum and you go through the curriculum and you get coaching. I would look for, it depended on what I want help with. If I wanted to help with wellness, mental wellness, I would look for a mental wellness coach online. I would see where they are, and then I would say, what do you do? If you want that Christian perspective, that's an important question to ask. Right? If it doesn't matter, that's okay. But I had somebody that came back to me today after almost a year, and she couldn't afford to come back to me for a while, so she said, I'm going to come back. So she came back today and she said, I'm just so we went through, how would you rate? And we got to spirituality and faith, and she said, well, I really feel like because you helped me the last time, I'm really a lot better than I was. So I would rate myself probably an 8. And so, but she's having a lot of medical problems and things like that. So at the end of the session, I said, well, this is what I want you to work on. And then she's going to have surgery next week. So may I pray for you before we leave? And she said, yes, obviously. Yes, I would love for you to pray for me. And so that's what I really like to do is say, meet that need. Because if you meet that spiritual need, and like I told her, God is 3 in 1. He's in heaven. Jesus came on earth and he lived with us and showed us what to do. If you've accepted him in your heart, the Holy Spirit is right there. And he's going to walk with you all the way through this. And so all you need to worry about now is being still and knowing that he's God. And let him give him the reins right now, because he has the reins anyway. So that's kind of how I work with people. That's what they want. Good question, though. It just depends. It's so open. That's what I mean by it's not really regulated. It's all in where you are as far as functioning and what's your outcome, what you want. Anyway, any other questions? Right now, I'm more of a generalist since I'm a counselor too. And I'm sure eventually I'll find my specialty, my people that I work with. But I feel like I can work with a wide range of people. So right now, because that's what I do in counseling. So But I'm sure one day. My goal would be, if I had to say that right now, I'd probably say my goal would be leaders who want to empower them to work on their anxiety and stress, because that opens up a whole new door of all these mindset things, all the things you work in, and then to be able to live the life they want to live. And so that's kind of where I would like to go, I think, but I'm not sure. So thank you for asking. Anybody else? And then next week, like I said, we're gonna do a Bible study. And so it'll start at 6:30 because I have to practice with the praise team. So I get out here. He's going to let me out. My slave driver is going to let me out about 6:15. So anytime between 6:15 and 6:30, we'll get started. Yes.
Question, you were like coach before the pandemic, correct?
Yeah. Well, I was both.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does the pandemic affect your approach to life coaches after post-pandemic? Can you explain that?
Yes, I will. And it's been really easy. It's been a pretty easy transition for me. When I was a counselor, the facilities I went into, because I went into retirement homes, assisted livings, and I would I would get my open door. The door that opened to me was keeping as much as you got for as long as you can. I'd work with cognitive exercises and things, and then as you work, you find out, well, there's some depression there's some anxiety, So they saw how it was benefiting the residents, even the ones that I didn't see, because I would talk to everybody. And so they let me keep coming until out of attrition, I lost my clients, for one reason or another. And so then, actually, I started working with BetterHelp. And so I'm doing that now, but they're not giving me enough clients. But what I say for them is, I give them that option. If I really feel like they've got a clinical diagnosis, we do the counseling. And quite honestly, I've only had one that I feel like really needs counseling. And the others, I say, well, there's a difference. So we can do this, and we can do coaching, and if you feel like that's not meeting your need, we can go back over to counseling. And so that's how I've worked that right now. But now I'm trying to get out and see what God has for me out in the area. And wherever. But I do telehealth is what I do. I do it on a computer. So they have that comfort of being wherever they are, whenever they want to do it. Okay? Well, let's have a word of prayer, and I'll dismiss y'all. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to this group and just let them know what my calling is that you've given me. I feel like I'm alive, and I just thank you for the blessings of friendships and for people that are curious and just for friendships that we have in this place. And I just ask that you be with each and every one and get them to their homes safely and help them have a great week. In Jesus' name, amen.